We have some phenomenal folks. Again, we're just waiting. Whenever we do these GBA events, I never start on time. I give folks an opportunity just to introduce themselves a little bit. And part of it is so the speakers can get an idea of who's in the room. But Senja, you're coming from a long way. You're from Croatia. You want to say hi and introduce yourself?
Yes, absolutely. Hello to everyone. So greetings from Zagreb, Croatia. I work in Ministry of Finance, Tax Administration, so I'm very privileged that work with Government Blockchain Association on our report. So it's very nice to meet you all around. Thank you.
And Senja is doing a lot of work in our tax working group, and they're just putting together some phenomenal stuff. Just really awesome. Wendy, I think I saw you. Wendy, you want to say hi from Colorado and tell them a little bit about what you guys are doing?
Yes. Hello, I'm Wendy Charles. I'm Chief Scientific Officer at Burst IQ, and I am a proud volunteer in the GBA healthcare group.
That's awesome. And you guys are just doing amazing stuff, bringing researchers from all around the world together to can you tell us about any of the solutions that you guys are working on?
Oh, sure. So we created a partnership with the American Heart Association and Hitachi in order to sponsor, to provide infrastructure and framework for more COVID-related research. And it's been exciting to see individuals use a blockchain platform to store their data, store and share their data securely for cardiovascular risks, especially in disadvantaged populations. And some of those, I don't know what the specific outcomes are yet. The American Heart Association judged the proposals, but they're going to be announcing a finalist soon. And the president of the AHA, representative from Hitachi, and I are all putting together a proposal to speak at a conference together about how our unique combinations of blockchain and medical science were able to advance some COVID solutions.
Wow.
Cool stuff. Totally cool stuff. All right. Anybody else want to introduce any cool stuff that they're doing? Paul, I think I saw you on there. You're going to be speaking at one of our upcoming events. You want to give us a little primer on what you guys are going to be talking about? You're on mute.
So yes, thank you for the invitation. The general theme is scaling blockchains for global solutions. So I'll be discussing some of the design concepts we've been working, with in terms of performance around scalability, capacity throughput, and low latency, in fact, near real-time processing, but also encapsulating things around functionality, which, obviously encourage adoption and scaling, and then even factors around ease of adoption. And then I've got another panelist who's going to be representing some of the challenges that are represented, and I'll be talking to, why they exist and what their possible remedies are.
That's so awesome. Mark, are you back from getting your sandwich yet? Mark Wasser. Nope, not yet. All right. Well, I tell you what, Kath, let's do this. I want to get started in about 6 minutes. You got about 6 minutes. You want to tell them a little bit about the event that's coming up in May?
Sure.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So May of 2021, May 17 through 22, the GBA is putting on Government Blockchain Week, which will be Monday through Friday. Saturday, there's an extra class, but Monday through Friday. Each day is going to have a different theme. One day is cryptocurrency and cybersecurity. One day is international trade. 3 of the nights, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, there will be a gala reception at an iconic venue in Washington, D.C. Each one of them has a different theme. One of them is probably going to be black tie. And there are just a lot of different pockets of interesting things going on, like FinTech Roundtable, which is by invitation only. All the heads of FinTech that are coming are going to get together. There's also going to be a pitch competition for economic growth, kind of like Shark Tank. There's going to be the annual achievement awards presented at the Congressional Auditorium at the U.S. Capitol, and there will also be an art show, which will be judged by a blockchain voting app, so it can demonstrate the way the voting app will work in a non-threatening sample. It's just an art show, and so it's just going to demonstrate how this voting app will work. But there are other things coming. It's an entire week full of interesting blockchain symposiums going.
Yeah, it's going to be absolutely awesome. I'm looking forward to it in such a big way. And then Mark Wasser, you are back from eating your sandwich. I saw video evidence of it.
I was back from making my sandwich. Now I'm eating. What can I do for you?
You want to share with folks just a little bit about the project you're working on with the GBBP?
So what I'm working on and what the GBBP is it's a constellation of different blockchains. We're working on blockchain interoperability so that anyone can use their own preferred blockchain, yet be able to order services from other blockchains and or sell other services to other blockchains. We transmit value from blockchain to blockchain using a cross-blockchain Ethereum valued utility token. And we're hoping to have the blockchain have about 200 nodes by the end of next month. Node requirements are pretty minimal. We've actually got Raspberry Pis up and running blockchain nodes so that we can probably actually make them available to a number of people. For those who don't know, Raspberry Pis are small hobbyist computers. You can generally buy one for about $125 as it needs to be set up for the GBBP. What am I missing, Gerard?
The thing that's really going to be phenomenal about this is that we're creating an infrastructure that all these different blockchains can connect together, and the working groups are they're essentially building applications and solutions and ecosystems right on top of that. So there's an emergency management ecosystem. There's going to be a healthcare ecosystem. There's going to be a economic/tokenomic ecosystem, so that anybody who has a blockchain application will be able to connect and interoperate in ways. And then the idea is to create services to government. So instead of every government of the world making and buying and maintaining their own technology for licensing and permitting, they can all essentially go to the GBBP and order those services off of that. So it's a way to increase interoperability. It's a way to reduce friction between government and constituents. It's a way to reduce costs. And it creates opportunity for everyone. So it's just what the project that Mark and the different working groups are doing is just fantastic. And somebody just asked me to put a link to the symposium in the chat. I just added it. It's GBA Global. Well, the easiest one is GBAglobal.org/GBW20. That's just a quick little splash page that we have, but it's got links there to the speakers and all the other stuff. The ticketing page will probably be up sometime later today, I'm thinking. All right, let's see. It is now 1:09, so let me go ahead. Like I said, I normally give folks, we're still coming in, I normally give folks a little bit of time to come in, but I think we're pretty much ready to rock and roll. Let's start off by doing some quick housekeeping. So this is the way that we normally do this. I really like interactive conversation stuff, but we've got a bunch of folks on this call. So what I'm going to do is ask everybody to put themselves on mute except for the speaker. And then when we get to the questions and answers, what I'd like you to do is just raise your hand, and then I'll unmute you so you can ask your questions. If you don't want to ask your questions, you can go ahead and type it into the chat. I'll be trying to monitor that and ask those questions. But I do really like the interaction. So the the way we're going to do this is I'm going to ask each of the panelists to introduce themselves. After that, make an opening statement. Then I'll ask them some questions. Then I'll turn it over to you because you guys are probably, the collection of you are just way smarter than I am. And I want to make sure at the end of this time together that you get the information that you guys need. So with that, Mark Montoya, why don't we go, we'll go, actually, let me do it this way. Let me do Bill Rockwood first, because Bill and Tiffany both come from a similar perspective. So Bill, why don't you go first, then we'll come at it from Mark's perspective, and then we'll hit Tiffany. So just start off by just introducing yourself briefly, and then after everybody introduces themselves, then I'll ask you each to make an opening remark, and you can share your screens if you would like to do that.
Thanks, Gerard. My name is Bill Rockwood. I'm the Deputy Legislative Director for Congressman Darren Soto. He's one of the co-chairs of the Congressional Blockchain Caucus. So I'll go ahead and say my mandatory line that all views expressed today are my own and are not necessarily reflective of my boss. And I have to commend Gerard for all the work he's doing. You know, blockchain is an exciting ecosystem. There's a ton in the news these days, and it's really exciting that I think we're starting to get a sense of momentum. But there's a lot of work to get to this point, and it's only a start. So I look forward to joining the call and hopefully building off this momentum that's been started. And I should apologize in advance. I brought my puppy to the office today. So if you see me dip off the screen, it's because she's chewing on something. So I apologize in advance.
That's funny. All right. Mark Montoya, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I know everybody, we're still getting used to this teleworking. So I bought a 47-inch monitor. So you guys were like up here and up here. Now you guys are right here. So I keep on looking over here and notifications pop up on this side. So unfortunately, I have to go back to like the 9-inch monitor now so I can see everybody. But my name is Mark Montoya. I'm the Chief Data Officer for the Government Blockchain Association. And this group is so phenomenal. I love a lot of these webinars that we do. Everybody learns a lot, and it's actually global in nature, which is awesome. But along with Ksenia and some other folks on the call, I've been working on this document for the Government Blockchain Association called the Crypto Impact on Government Entities. And this document is great. There's a lot of information in there. Like Bill said, stuff is changing almost every week now. New stuff comes out. And the bottom line is we're actually in a currency war now. All this currency stuff coming out. But the technology is so innovative. I think we're going to have a lot of solutions with it. And it's just a great time to be in this space right now. I think we all can agree that it's a phenomenal time, and I'm glad to be part of it.
Excellent. Tiffany.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Tiffany Angulo. I'm Legislative Director to Congressman David Schweikert, who is another Blockchain Caucus co-chair. So I do all the technology things for him. I started with him about 3 years ago or so. I've done other tech things for other members, but was brought on to sort of build out the Blockchain Caucus for my boss. And I don't know if any of you have ever met him. He's a bit of a nerd. Again, I will reiterate what Bill said, any opinions are my own. But he is a bit of a nerd. He loves his whiteboards and drawing different diagrams of different kind of stuff. And so being able to work with him has been phenomenal. He thinks that technology can solve problems, and absolutely, I think everybody in this room will agree, blockchain has the potential and is already solving an enormous amount of problems. So we're excited to see where it goes.
And
Excellent.
I'll add one more comment. I wanted to make sure Tiffany and I represent the bipartisan coalition. So that's very important to mention that politics is a bit toxic these days, but crypto and blockchain have the potential to be nonpartisan, as I like to say. So we represent the Democrat and Republican co-chairs. And additionally, I just shared in the chat a supplemental PowerPoint that we might not follow, but it's just kind of an insider's guide to everything that's happening in Congress right now that hopefully help you follow some stuff.
Excellent. All right, super. So, Bill, why don't you go ahead and start with an opening statement, and then we'll do Mark, and then Tiffany.
Thought that was the opening statement. What would you like me to to launch with.
Well, why don't you just tell them a little bit about what you guys are doing with the Blockchain Caucus? You guys have just recently put out some bills and stuff like that, and then maybe where you're going.
Okay. Well, that PowerPoint will be helpful, and I'll give you a little bit of background about me before we go straight into it. I do have a bit of a finance background, and you know, went to law school, business school, and have a master's of law in financial regulation, and sort of got into blockchain by accident. That I thought I was going to be financial policy guy, go work in the Treasury Department. Got a little disillusioned by the political environment because it's very polarized here. You know, Dodd-Frank's either the best thing ever or the worst thing ever, or actually it's probably realistically somewhere in the middle. And I sort of looped on to technology policy because I was really interested in AI to begin with. And I realized government is painfully behind, especially the US government, on technology policy. Didn't have any idea what blockchain was 3 or 4 years ago. But as far behind as we are in AI, you know, the conversation's just getting going on blockchain. So as a way, as a congressional staffer, to get in on an issue at the front end and contribute to policy and issues before it happens. You know, every politician has a thing to say about every issue, but it's kind of fun as a staffer to be in front of things before they happen. So that relates into the big picture narrative and kind of how Tiffany and I jobs are divided, where, you know, 3 years ago, our job was almost 100% educational. That's the large part of the caucus is just new members and new staffers have never heard about crypto or blockchain, or all they want to talk about is Bitcoin and Libra. So nothing against those things. They're great entry points to the conversation, but as people in the ecosystem know, the world's a lot bigger than that. And so personally, what got me motivated is, like Tiffany said, blockchain is a developing technology, but I think all people to some degree get involved in public policy because they want to make a difference somehow. So getting involved and seeing how blockchain can be applied to real world problems, and the government houses a ton of data, and right now it's dumb data that doesn't communicate well. And there are just so many layers that blockchain can be used to really solve real world problems. So I think that's a 10-year horizon where we're still spending a fair amount of our time on the educational front. But as Tiffany and I talk about some of our legislative items, you know, those are foundational steps that are just starting to move, where we have this short-term educational front, but also these long-term policy initiatives that we try to hopefully meet somewhere down the road. So that's probably my big picture take.
Awesome. Mark Montoya, would you like to give us, by the way, Bill, that was an awesome opening statement. I just want you to know that. Mark Montoya, do you want to tell us a little bit about, what you're doing and where you're going, kind of thing?
Sure. Hopefully we're all going to the future together. I'm not going to stay here in this time. Everything will change.
Hang on a second. How bright is the future?
It's so bright we got to wear shades. Yeah, this future's so bright. So let me give you, like Bill did, I'll give you some background on me. So I've been in data strategy and financial and non-financial data for about 20 years now. And Bill's right, it's all about the data. And I know someone said that the data now is actually the new toxic asset because there's so much in this data, not only from a privacy standpoint, security standpoint, ability to move it around and understand it. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it. And then I also have a financial background like Bill does. I work for a US federal regulator. And what's interesting with Bill's statement, Dodd-Frank, the CFTC just finished implementing Dodd-Frank last year. Look how long that took. It took 9 years, right? 2009, 2008, 9 years to implement. So that's how long it takes to implement any type of change within the government. And you can't move a monolith overnight. They're set that way for a purpose. If everything changed so quickly, like technology changes, it'll cause a problem. I know this fourth industrial revolution is moving so quickly. You need a time for people to understand the technology. just like when the first, the mobile phone came out, right? And then the smartphone came out and people are like, what do I do with this thing? Now everybody has a smartphone. I have the new Surface Duo. It's pretty cool. I like the Surface Duo. So I'm into technology still, but the idea is you got to get people used to this technology. So there's like a gap in between where people need to understand that. But now as this technology is moving so quickly, the gap is starting to close. So when the gap is actually people understand it, when technology changes, you're going to be on top of each other pretty soon. And people are not going to have time to actually change. So we got to learn how to manage this type of technology, understand it. Again, education is very important. That's what Bill and Tiffany are doing. So is GBA. We're educating a lot of people on this technology. But what people do with this technology, the ethical aspect of it, the design aspect of it is a big deal, right? From a policy standpoint, a social standpoint, and just a global standpoint. We need to figure out how we can use this data to empower not just the people, but push us forward. This is progress, right? We don't want to go back into, I don't know if you can say the dark ages, but we need to progress forward with this technology. And I think we're doing it. I can not iterate enough, but this is such a great time to be in this space now and understand it. I consider it a greenfield, even though the blockchain type technology started coming out in 2008. There's a lot of stuff that still needs to be done, especially from a governance standpoint. But we're here, and I think everybody that's on the phone can add to this change, can participate in this change, and let's go together in the future together as a coalition. Thanks. Thanks, Bill.
Excellent. Tiffany, do you have any comments you'd like to make, sort of as opening remarks, before I start peppering you with questions?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to build off of what the folks just said. So Bill and I, we work hand in hand on the blockchain caucus stuff. So as I mentioned, I started with my boss in, excuse me, I started about in 2017. We had like not too many members. If we had any bills, I think it was like maybe a handful of like random like bills that like members had introduced, but it was still, I mean, where we are now. I mean, we started the caucus started in the 114th Congress, and now in the 116th, I think we have like 24 different members, and now we're having Senate interest. Just again, I want to be positive, because sometimes technology and where we are and how slow we move, us calling offices to be like, who handles blockchain issues, would be like, what is that? Now you'll actually have like let me connect you to the correct staffer. So we're making baby steps. We've done tons of, we've introduced an enormous amount of like different bills and different kind of stuff and projects already. So, I'm optimistic of where we're going. We definitely have, it's less of us harassing offices and more offices reaching out to us to be like, hey, I have a company in our district or in our state that's doing super cool stuff. How can I get involved? What can I do? I want to get my boss up to date. Can you send me some stuff? So we're definitely moving in the right direction. I think going to what Mark said, 100%, we need to get to a point where we're asking the correct questions. It's very easy for members and just anybody, to look at the news or read, get essentially these cliche talking points, and how can we move you apart from that? And I think that's what a lot of you guys are doing, which is setting the tone that, this technology is doing amazing things and it's going to solve an enormous amount of problems. And how can you sell that to the folks on the Hill? And we have so many use cases that's making our jobs a million times easier.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tiffany. So folks on the call, we have an incredibly awesome surprise opportunity. Scott, I did send you a text. I hope you saw it, or a chat. We have somebody who has joined the call who is truly historic. Not that he's that old, but he's a gentleman that I give credit to inventing blockchain in 1991. In fact, Satoshi Nakamoto references his work I think 3 times out of the 8 references. And we're just unbelievably blessed to have somebody like him. So Scott, I have unmuted you. I would love to give you an opportunity just to say hi, to say whatever's on your heart. I know you want to listen to the panelists, but we're so grateful that you're here, and I just love to give you the floor for a few minutes.
Right, I'll try to keep it short. It really is a pleasure to be here, and I really did come just to listen. I have a lot of competing demands on my time, but Gerard has been a friend for some time now, and whenever there's opportunity to get in to a session, I try to grab it. I'm particularly, two other thoughts. The first, I'm particularly appreciative to Bill and Tiffany. You know, we're at a time of such uncivil discourse, and to have you continuing to just press ahead and try to make real progress amidst all of the Sturm und Drang, if you will, is greatly appreciated by ordinary citizens like me. And if there's ever anything I can do to be helpful, sign me up. My second comment really has to do with Zoom, and then I'll go back to the work of listening, and that is, you know, one of the terrific things about Zoom is that you can have virtual backgrounds, and mine is a particularly authentic one, okay? If you actually believed the virtual background, you'd think that my wife had kicked me out of her upstairs corner office and sent me down to the basement, when in fact, I'm actually at one of my homes on the French Riviera. So, with that, I will mute myself, and am gonna listen as long as I can. I have another competing commitment at 2, but very, very happy to be supportive both of the congressional work that's being done specifically, as well as the work that the GBA is doing. I'm here to help, and I'm a fan. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. I have heard Scott speak. He spoke to our at our event at the U.S. Capitol last year, and and hands down, everyone told me that his talk was the best, the most insightful, the most inspirational. And then I had a chance to hear him again when he spoke to our Dubai chapter. Scott, I just want to tell you, your commitment, your inspiration, your heart, your integrity is just beyond compare. And just so grateful that you're part of our family. Anyway, so let's do this.
Gerard, if you could just put a few good words into my wife about all of those good things that I do, then maybe I will get back out of this virtual basement. Thank you.
Listen, one of the most inspiring things, or the most impactful things that you told me about your conversation with Marcia, was when you said that you were trying to figure out this whole blockchain thing, and you're having dinner with her, and you were convinced. What Scott had said was, it broke his heart that we were moving into a digital world where anybody could change a digital record and you couldn't trust the records. And he said, what would it be like to live in a place where you couldn't trust the records? So that's what caused him and his research partner at Bell Labs to tackle this problem. And they got to the point where they just couldn't get there. So again, I'm paraphrasing the story and making it much shorter, but he was sitting and having dinner with Marcia, and he was thinking the only way that you could prevent it would be to have a third party validate, but that person could collude, so you'd need a fourth. Well, there could be collusion there, and then a fifth, and a sixth, and you would have to continue adding more people, but they could all be involved in the collusion. And Mark and Scott looked up at his wife, and he had this thought: when enough people are involved in the collusion, it's no longer collusion, but it's consensus. Right? And he said to Marcia, I think I just figured out something, and I think it's important. And your talk about consensus and collusion in society, and your inspiration on where we should take this, I just thought was incredibly impactful. Anyway, I've taken way too much time away from our panelists, so I apologize. Mark, let me start with you. Why don't you lay out this blockchain and cryptocurrency thing? What kind of impacts is this going to have on government, right? And then for Tiffany and Bill, I want to ask you questions around two subjects, right? Tiffany, I've got a company in my district and they wanted to get into this blockchain thing. How do they do it? So I want to talk about, for commercial companies, this is for Bill and Tiffany both, what are government contractors? what are some of the opportunities that you see in terms of where the government is going, where government contractors could build solutions, get grants, money opportunities? So from a government contractor's perspective, what can you share with them? And then the next question that we'll tackle after that is from a regulatory perspective, right? There's a lot of regulatory barriers, right? How do we deal with that? Because we have a very tightly controlled financial system. It's a very disciplined system, but the challenge is with innovation sometimes breaks the rules. And what can you tell us in terms of the thought process on Capitol Hill in terms of how to walk that line? But Mark, let me start with you, right? Tell us what impact does blockchain and cryptocurrency have on governments, and then I'll turn it over to Bill and Tiffany.
Sure. That's a great question, Gerard. So let me kind of frame it this way. So a lot of the regulatory laws, right, were they're written when the agencies came up and about, right, around the government, right. They had their laws, they had their legislation in place, and they had to review their laws again when the internet came around. And the internet changed a lot of things, how you actually democratized information, right? Back and forth, people can get information. With this blockchain and cryptocurrency technology, they have to review their regulations again because they see the impact on it. It actually, if you really look at it, it creates micro economies, right? We can set up our own, everybody on this call, we can set up our own micro economy and exchange value. So they see the importance of it. And through in the paper that we're working on, you can see it throughout the world. It's different at different levels. Europe is, I believe, is more advanced. U.S. is still trying to come together with a lot of the regulation. Latin America is still working on theirs. They don't really have a regulatory framework at all, but they see the impact. And I really think, it goes back to, I think Bill or Tiffany said this, is when Facebook came out saying they're going to have their own currency. They're going to have Libra, which everybody's like, whoa, wait a minute. So think about it. There's so many people that use Facebook, and I don't know, maybe it's like 2.3 billion people. As soon as they have their own money and start exchanging it on their network, they become a globally systemic important institution that they have their own economy. They can actually start setting their own monetary policy within their network, which is interesting. And it scared a lot of people. I think when they made that announcement, and I think maybe I'm giving them too much credit, but I think they knew what they're going to do. They released this, everybody went nuts. People are like, oh, wait a minute, I think this is actually a good idea. And oh, what are they trying to do? And then you start seeing the central banks come out with their digital currency. So I think it's an impact. This technology is impacting the governments all around for the good, I think. And also, if you look on the other side, and also for the bad. They'll give you a way to exchange information freely, right? But then you have a lot of governments that want to control the monetary policy and have controls on it so they can actually, if the economy is bad, they can lock it down and say we're not going to release any money until the economy is better, and then you can have your money. So there's pros and cons behind it. But the bottom line is that since Facebook made that announcement, this technology, the blockchain technology in and of itself, right, is great. A lot of countries like that. Even China likes the blockchain technology. But then you have the cryptocurrency, the digital money aspect of it. It's a whole nother factor in it. So, but in looking at this, all the governments are reviewing this and actually having some type of either proof of concept or initiative.
And I'll jump in there, Gerard, and like the traditional politician, as the debate shows us, I'm going to answer the question I want to instead of the one you asked. But again, I shared the link in the discussion for some of the bills I'm going to be walking through real quick, because I think that's a helpful context, just for everyone on what Congress is working on now. That's sort of a window into what we're doing. And just as kind of a bouncing off of Mark's story, Facebook and Libra actually reached out to me a month and a half before launch, and I gave them 2 pieces of advice, which they did not follow. I said, you need to give staffers a 1-pager on what is a stable coin and a 1-pager on why you're locating in Switzerland and not the US. and not saying I was right, but those were the majority of the questions, and they really miscalculated the level of understanding. They thought they were going to get a lot of great press. I think their project is ambitious and something like it will exist, but they didn't meet their audience where they were ready to have the discussion. You know, maybe 1 or 2 members on the panel knew what a stablecoin was. 1 or 2 realized why Switzerland. You know, it's because US regulatory rules aren't clear. So really, if they would have done their homework on the front end, they could have had a much more constructive conversation. And I just use that as an example of some of the work Tiffany and I do, is that you have to, and this is probably my biggest piece of advice for those engaged in the ecosystem. When you get time with a policymaker, you have to connect the dots for them. Like I know the tech is really exciting, and you get 2 or 3 minutes of FaceTime with a member of Congress. They have, most of them have no idea what any of this stuff is. So if you go into the weeds right away, you're going to talk right over their head. You know, all they're going to think is Bitcoin and technology and crypto. That's crazy. Like, isn't that a use in illicit financing? Like, that's what the average member thinks. So my tangible piece of advice is do a little bit of research on who you're looking to talk to. Like Tiffany's boss is a little more wonky and in the weeds and is a technologist, and he'll get right in there with the weeds with you. My boss is more of a big picture type of person, so he can follow a lot of the nuanced stuff, but he likes the big picture stuff. So for members that have no idea what it is, my piece of advice is connect blockchain or crypto to something they care about. You know, oh, they want to reduce healthcare costs, or oh, they want to contaminated food tracing, whatever it is. You introduce a problem that they're familiar with, that they care about, and some of these problems date back 40 years and the US government hasn't been able to solve them. And now there's this new solution that proposes promise. So you have to, like, I call it breadcrumbing. You have to breadcrumb the problem that they care about and tease blockchain as a potential solution. And then they'll ask the questions to you, why the technical stuff. But if you lead with the technical stuff, you lose your audience. So that's roughly half of Tiffany and I's job is connecting the dots for the members and staffers that have never heard of this. And then the reason I'm personally passionate is the big term policy stuff when we get to do some legislation. So in that line, I don't want to talk too much, but just for the audience, if you go to the PowerPoint, the third slide, we did have some exciting news 2 or 3 weeks ago that the first blockchain bills actually passed the House of Representatives. Major news, they are not sweeping pieces of legislation. They're both study bills, but they queue up a larger discussion. You know, this was realistically 3 years worth of legwork to saying, why is this important? And most folks weren't paying attention until COVID, and that accelerated the discussion. But both of those are study bills. One directs the Department of Commerce to conduct a study and submit a report for how blockchain can be used in commerce and for consumer protection purposes, and make potential regulatory and legislative suggestions for how to update the regulatory environment. Again, it proposes no substantive changes. It lets the Department of Commerce make their own recommendations. And this is as much of an educational document for members of Congress as it is policy proposals. So that's the other thing. Like, I think in terms of short-term and long-term, this is a short-term step to a larger, longer-term solution. The other bill that passed was a bill on for the Federal Trade Commission about digital tokens, what their current consumer protection authority is, what resources they're doing, and again, getting a set of recommendations for what can be used in the future. Everyone wants to talk about securities or commodities, and while that is incredibly important, the FTC already has authority to regulate technology. They were the agency that levied the $5 billion fine against Facebook for unfair and deceptive acts. So this authority exists, and admittedly, some of these things are securities, some of these things are commodities, but there's this whole third bucket that policymakers aren't really thinking about in terms of tokens as utilities. I know utility tokens. I know that's not the preferred term for some folks, but everyone knows what I'm talking about. That you're not investing in a token for investment purposes. You're investing in access to a network to do X. So again, these are reports to queue up a larger conversation. Hey, this authority exists. Hey, the Department of Commerce can probably give some suggestions for how to protect customers and update the business environment. So those are the two bills that actually passed. As my boss said in the press release, which linked, hopefully the longer term outcome of that is to create a center of excellence within the Department of Commerce to coordinate all non-defense activities within the government. Some sort of hub. While it won't do everything, you just have a central point, staff up, hire somebody like Scott and get some experts to do their thing and kind of coordinate research. Because right now, federal agencies are just starting their research. There's a lot of pilot programs, but it's somewhat disjointed that every agency has their own pilot. They have to start from square one. So that's the big picture goal. I did tease the securities and commodities discussion. That fourth slide introduces the Securities Clarity Act, which my boss was the Democratic co-lead. Really, it just codifies the Howey test for digital assets. It's not a huge step, but it at least provides some clarity. And the Digital Commodity Exchange Act, again, which I linked the press release in a summary, it is a federal opt-in approach for crypto exchanges. Right now we have the 50-state approach where you need 50 licenses to operate. This is an opt-in method that if you choose to do this, go through the CFTC, and then the exchange is responsible for conducting a certain amount of due diligence on every crypto asset that they list. And if they don't do a proper job with that, there are some penalties. So this is a proposed solution to get past the 50-state patchwork option, and it is optional. I should emphasize that because we're moving with baby steps, and sometimes these projects are state-based in nature and don't have a federal approach. So it wouldn't make sense to have a federal structure for a local project. The fifth page is the bill that Tiffany's boss introduced, so I'll leave that to her. And then kind of the last 3 pages I will queue up as a secret sauce for the panel today, that the bills in the piece of legislation get most of the attention in this space. Rightfully so, they're very important, but politics is a very messy process, especially for new ideas like this. So the bills are probably realistically several years out from passing. We hope that moves faster. There's a bit educational component to that, which is why the blockchain bill is moving is a positive step. But sort of our intermediary solution is to get things in the federal budget. That is one thing the Congress, they control the purse strings. So if you can't pass a bill, you can fund a project at the federal level, a grant program or what have you. And so I posted, I think there's 8 different examples of basically, we made recommendations for various agencies to consider blockchain solutions or create blockchain pilot programs to consider blockchain solutions for whatever problem they're trying to solve. One example is the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, to use a blockchain pilot program to track contaminated foods. So for people that know blockchain well enough, they can probably identify aspects of the government where blockchain solutions can help. And really, this was our attempt. I call it throwing darts at the dartboard to see what stuck. And I was very happy to see that basically everything we proposed got in. 10 different ideas across 10 different agencies to just consider blockchain. I think we're 1 year, 2 years out from large scale spending at the federal level, but these are initial steps that you know, Congress may allocate an agency $1 billion, but if it's not clearly in their purview that they can use that $1 billion for a blockchain project, they need sometimes explicit authority to do that, and Congress gives that with how the money is spent. So this is really just building a track record of short-term successes. So when these pieces of legislation move, it's not just the industry cares about this and, oh, capital flight to overseas because the laws aren't clear. The idea is we're going to have, you know, 20 some odd success stories within the federal government that says, hey, this stuff is already happening. Agencies can already use blockchain to solve problems. So that's been, I think, over 20 items in the past few years that we've gotten in, and we continue to build on those. And that's something as homework to everyone out there. I'll say, I kind of have a sense of ideas of where blockchain can be applied, but if you all have ideas for ways blockchain can be applied within the government, those are extremely helpful for us. These things are like very technical to write and very, frankly, they're a pain in the ass, sorry. But if you all have ideas, those are ideas we can run with. If you just have an idea, we can partner up and figure out how to craft the language. And I think that's where a lot of the success gets done. So sorry that was rambling, but I just wanted to give a sense. Tiffany can go into her boss's bills and we'll ping pong from there.
Hey, Tiffany, hold on before you start. Bill, I want to make an offer to the folks on the call to follow up on Bill's comment. If you have a use case that you would like to see government engage in, what I'd encourage you to do is, if you go to the gbaglobal.org website, at the bottom there's a contact form. If you put that information in that contact form, then we will consolidate that information and deliver it to Bill and Tiffany so that they can get a consolidated view and not get machine gunned with a whole bunch of content. Bill, are you okay with that?
Yeah, thank you. That saving emails is appreciated more than you know. So, yeah.
All right.
I want to add to that.
Alex, hang on a second. Don't I'll give you a chance later. If anybody wants to talk, just raise your hand, because otherwise this will become very crazy. But Bill, I've got I'm going to put you on the hook. If I give you this stuff if they're going to take the time to write it, what I'm going to ask you to do is essentially respond to it, on the writing, send it back to me, and then I'll make it available to GBA members so they can at least see that if they do put something out there, that there is a response. And even if it's just a one word, sounds great, but I think that would be fair to the folks on the call. Are you good with that?
Yeah, and I'll go one step further. I'm actually trying to consolidate all of our wins in one pretty one-pager, and I can share that with you as a template, so you can see how an idea translates into report language. So it can kind of go from there. So I'll give you our wins from the past couple years in the next few days, and then we can hopefully reverse engineer some ideas. And hopefully I'll definitely report back to you, but I think our ultimate thing is when the federal budget passes in September of next year, we'll have some items that came from the GBA group.
Wow, that would be awesome. That would be awesome. All right, Tiffany, the stage is yours. Would you like to share some of the stuff that you guys are working on? And then incidentally, just to let everybody know before we start, after these guys have a chance to talk, then I want to give all the folks on the call, Alex, you included, and sorry, I'm going to essentially give you an opportunity to unmute yourself, ask your questions, engage in your dialogue, because we really do like this to be an interactive conversation. But I will ask you to hold that until after Tiffany makes her remarks. Go ahead, Tiffany.
Yeah, and I won't take too long. Bill did an awesome job at summarizing everything. I will add, if some of you are working with any agencies or have any projects that you're doing, also include that in the conversation, because that is one thing we have absolutely learned through this whole process that there are pockets of interest at different agencies, whether that's HHS has a blockchain that they're working for, like purchasing things. CDC was looking at one to help with like disease things. Obviously the FDA is looking at like supply chain of like food safety and pharmaceuticals. We had a thing, Bill and I had another like roundtable with NASA like folks that they're also doing like different things. So there are staff, not necessarily only us, that work for government that are interested in seeing, you know, because again, we all know this, blockchain is going to solve things. It's already solving things. It's going to allow things to be more, you know, it's good and it's here and this is where we're moving. And there are staffers at different agencies already that have interest. And it would be helpful for us if you guys are working with them to know, because then that's another opportunity for us to potentially prop up money at those different agencies. But I wanted to go back to one of the questions that you asked about like barriers. I think Bill kind of touched on that too. The other thing that we've been seeing, and I'm sure you are all aware of, and our bills have tried to get at that. We have a smart contract bill, and ours was, we had done, I don't know, Bill, I think we've done, what is it, like 5 round tables. So the Hill moved very slowly, but what we've been trying to do is we've done these like enormous round tables where we get industry and different like regulatory folks into the room to figure out like education, and then also to figure out where industry is and where it's going and what should we be paying attention to. And one of the ones we did was like on smart contracts. We did one on payments, same thing, where you have like 50 states with different kind of rules. We need something that's going to lead from the federal level. So we have some bills looking at that. And then we have our smart contract bill that my boss introduced with Mr. Soto as well, that we've got, you know, we have, I don't know, it's probably like 10 states or probably more at this point that have a definition of blockchain and smart contracts. They're all varying, they're all a little bit different, which is good. But we want to make sure that we're leading from the top and we're not going to get into any potential pitfalls later on. I think somebody in the chat mentioned global standards. We're also paying attention to that. We know that the EU is potentially pushing forward with some kind of framework for 2024. So we're going to need to look at big picture eventually as well, and what that's going to look like. But yeah, I mean, it's been a pretty crazy, you know, and so we definitely are paying attention. And so when you do have meetings with offices, I think at this point, you know, you have Arizona specifically, we have a sandbox. I know Wyoming they just got passed for the bank charter with Kraken. These are all going to be amazing things to point to. We're very excited about what's going on in Wyoming, because when, you know, they kill it over there and it's going to be awesome, that's going to be an incredible use case for us when we tell our story, that look what's going on. And like, especially if you're going to meet with people, or depending on wherever, you know, technology can solve the problem of like unbanked and having more people have access to, you know, the underserved communities. These are all things that this technology can do. And so we're super excited about it. We've tried to do bills, you know, but there are an enormous amount of states that are moving ahead. And so I think that was what I wanted to make sure that we touched on. There's already pockets of interest. And so, you know, if we can't help you with grants, I guarantee you there's going to be state legislatures that would be more than excited to have you in the state that can help you get plugged in. So, I mean, I can say that for Arizona specifically, but I mean, look at what's going on in all of these other ones. So that was what I just quickly wanted to touch base, but this has been a great conversation already.
And if can I add one more wrinkle to Tiffany's comments? So to the companies and districts, just engage with the staff. A lot of times staff may care, but it's immediate buy-in from the member of Congress if there's a company in their district that does X. So just say, I'm a blockchain company in your state or in your district, and I'd like to know more about what you're doing, because that also accelerates the conversation. We've started to get more of those emails where staffers are reaching out. It's like, hey, we had this company reach out to us saying, we're not moving fast enough. Can you give us a little bit more background? So it is a bit of a push-pull dynamic. So if you all can just engage with, even with members that have never heard of it, you know, we're happy to, you know, when we're talking about the budget, that's as into the weeds as most staffers are going to get. So maybe not start there, but even for members that have never talked about it, just say you're in their district, you'd like to know what they're doing, and that's a great launching point. Because we need a critical mass before this stuff starts to move.
Absolutely. And I mean, you have to be relatable to, you know, these are, especially during COVID times, I can't tell you, we've had a few offices that have reached out to us because we need jobs, and jobs are so scarce, and we need to make sure that, you know, we're putting our constituency forward. And if you have jobs in the district that, you know, because we don't have clarity on any of these kind of regulatory, you know, whatever moving forward, those are at stake. Like in our district, we had a huge company that moved out, and most of their stuff's overseas. And obviously my boss is all in, but that is a very important thing for members to also understand, that like, we're here and we might be leaving. We might be pulling out jobs. Nobody wants to hear that. I can guarantee you in any meeting I've ever been in.
Yeah, jobs, jobs, jobs. Use that in the email, because if they don't understand the tech, they will understand jobs and money coming into the district.
I want to pivot for just a second. Oh, yeah, and I want to put you on mute for a moment. I want to definitely come back to this subject, but I want to pivot for a moment over to another responsibility Congress has, right, which is essentially to provide oversight on the economy, right? And Mark, I know you've been doing a lot of work recently on the impact that cryptocurrency adoption has had, and at the same time with the pandemic and the release of or the printing of $6 trillion of new money into the money supply, right? Essentially, I think we looked at it and I think we saw that in a 3-month period, we added more money to the money supply than we had in, I don't know, 25 or 40 years or something. So, Mark, from an economic impact, right? What's going on? Is this cryptocurrency space? Is it growing rapidly? Is it stagnant? What's going on from an investment standpoint? And then I want to switch back over from the government perspective. What kinds of things do Bill and Tiffany? What kind of things are you guys talking about in government in terms of, you know, is there an interest, a concern, an awareness of cryptocurrency adoption and its impact on the government's ability to manage the economy, you know, monitor compliance laws, collect revenue, right? I mean, is there a concern, or is cryptocurrency pretty much seen as you know, a minor thing that only drug dealers use? So Mark, talk to us a little bit about what the reality, what the data is telling us. And then Tiffany and Bill, if you wouldn't mind telling us from the perspective of what regulators are thinking. Mark.
Yep, so as George's saying, we're all in this pandemic, and the pandemic has hit the world globally. Globally, it's impacted everybody. And as you can see with the data, that the economy dropped in the first quarter. It dropped, I guess it went down close to under 4% GDP, but this is throughout the whole world. It's different, the different numbers, but all the GDP has dropped. And then the unemployment record has gone up. For the US, it went up to, the first quarter was 14%, and it dropped back down now, the second quarter, about 7.9%. But what Gerard was talking about, especially with the trillions of dollars that the US released, the M2 money stock, which is the money that the Treasury prints off, M2 money stock has gone up just from close to 3.3 trillion, like they put into the US economy. It's gone up up to, I think it's like 8.8 trillion. And then the velocity, this is what's interesting, the velocity of that M2 money stock is not, it's dropped off. It went from like 1.9 down to like 1.3%. And it's, the velocity means that there's no money trading. There's no one buying goods in the economy. And that's during the second quarter. And it's still kind of low. It's starting to go up a little bit. But so you have the money that's been put out there, the velocity. But what's interesting, you know, the US has a high debt right now. And all this money is being put into the banking system, but it's sitting in the Treasury. It's sitting at the Federal Reserve. just sitting there. And what's interesting, there's been a quote from one of the banks, and it's also in the paper, where they say that they have all this money, but they don't know what to do with it, right? I never had that problem with too much money, they don't know what to do with it, but the banks have all this money in their accounts, and they won't loan it out because obviously they're concerned that the people that don't have jobs, they're just not going to give them a loan, they're going to default and all that. And they also raise the credit limit, how much credit you should have, your credit score, to actually have the money lent out to you. So you have all that. You have the velocity, you have the unemployment, you have the all the money sitting in reserves and not being spent, all the debt that the U.S. has, and then you also have depends on what you look at. I look at John Hopkins' report for the coronavirus. It's obviously spiked in March, right, and then it kind of went down a little bit, and then the summertime it spiked again, and it's gone down a little bit. It's kind of like a snake, and then in the fall it's starting to go up again. So there's a big concern about that happening. Hopefully it won't shut down again. Hopefully we won't do that. But it's a concern going into the third and fourth quarter, going into the fourth quarter. But the impact on that, even though the economy is bad and unemployment's bad, look at the stock market. I think there's a big disconnect between the real economy and the stock market right now. A lot of these tech stocks they're going through the roof. Traditionally we used to have the manufacturing like GM, which had employed like 600,000 people, and then you have like Apple or Microsoft that they don't employ as many people, and you have everybody invested in what I call intangible assets like the tech stocks. It's just going through the roof. It keeps on going up. If you look at it again today, I think it might have dropped because of earnings, but it's going to go up. It keeps on going up. So it's a big disconnect between what's happening in the stock market and what's happening in the economy. Now, seeing that, if you start looking at the investment in fintech, and I said this early on, there's a lot of money going into fintech, and not just like I said, the blockchain technology, but there's a lot of research going into biotech, remote working technology, essentially even remote healthcare. All that money is going in from venture capitalists into that type of technology. So even though economy is bad, there's a lot of investment going into that and into that type of technology. And you can see the trend that's going to continue to grow as we go into 2020 and 2021. Hopefully we'll have the recovery in 2021, but all that money is being spent in this technology, and it keeps on growing.
Hey, Mark, let me ask you a question. We saw recently that MicroStrategy just moved $450 million from U.S. currency into Bitcoin. I think we saw Square move about $40 million into cryptocurrency. Is the rate of cryptocurrency adoption, assets being moved from institutional investors into stuff, is that anything to be of concern? Is it relatively insignificant? Is it something that will have an impact on the economy? Well,
I think right now, especially again going back to the problems in the economy or the issues in the economy, people are trying to figure out where to put their money. And again, they're buying a lot of the tech stock, but a lot of them are going into intangible assets. A lot of them are actually going into tangible assets, right? People are buying whiskey, they're buying art, they're buying watches, right? They're buying stuff to somehow invest, like really nice watches. You can buy it for like $4,000, and then eventually in a couple of years it's going to go up to $25,000. So they're investing in that type of asset. But going forward, I don't know how big of an impact it will be as institutional investors start getting into cryptocurrency. We just don't have that data yet. It's just not there. Because, like you said, Square and MicroStrategy invested within the last couple of weeks into it. Hopefully, we'll get some data by the end of the year and into next year, and we can have a better understanding of what people are doing with this and the impact on the economy.
Bill and Tiffany, on Capitol Hill, are they worried or talking about the? I know when Libra hit, they were concerned about stuff. I know when Libra hit, but is there a general knowledge, concern, even discussion about cryptocurrency adoption as alternatives to fiat currency?
I think it depends who you ask. I don't know if Bill stepped out, but I mean, we did a briefing with Libra like right around the time that they went public or whatever with all that stuff, and we had like a number of members in the room, And it was very interesting to see how like some of them kind of where they landed on stuff. I think you had some that were interested because of the idea that it would have been a what is it? It would, I mean, it would have been why am I blanking on the word? Not like an open network. It would have been like they wouldn't have controlled it. So I think, you know, looking at what's going on in China with any of the stuff that they're doing, where it's going to be a third party that would be controlling stuff. I think that you had members that were interested in Libra because it wouldn't have been, what is the word for that? I just blanked out what that is.
Control.
Yeah. So,
Mission
yeah. So, I mean, there were members that were interested because it would kind of remove potentially Facebook from being like the overseer on stuff. But I mean, it's still, I think the conversation we had with them was if they can like come out of the ashes and build trust, I think that we are completely set, because nobody trusts them right now. And using like where my boss specifically was, he is very excited about what was going on because he believes in the technology and thinks that it can actually bring like more transparency and just more trust into the equation for them. And so if they were able to, you know, come out of that and people be like, well, this isn't horrible, like that would be like enormously huge. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if you guys have seen even that hearing, and I know that we kind of alluded to that earlier, that you had members that were attacking Facebook. They weren't asking any of the questions that we need to be asking, and I think that that is our biggest frustration, that we are still at I don't know what happened there, but yeah, so we still at a place where we are not asking the questions we need to be. And so that's what we've seen from like the hearings that have happened. I mean, we definitely have a bunch of members on the caucus that are like pro blockchain, or at the very least like are interested in like seeing, you know, that we're doing things in a responsible manner. But yeah, I mean, I still think that, you know, you have a lot of members, and we have, like, I'm sure Bill has that too, where like I'll have offices that'll reach out and be like, I want to be, you know, I want to get my boss up to date on like this bill, but does that bill, you know, does it touch crypto? And if it does, we're not there yet. And it's like, okay, well, eventually we're going to need to. And I think, again, the more use cases and things that we can point to that like the world didn't end, like look at all the cool stuff that they're doing. And I think that's why we're very specifically excited. Arizona did a great job with the sandbox, and we're really pumped about what's going to happen in Wyoming, because that's going to be something else that we're going to be able to point to be like, look at that, like that, you know, we need to be paying attention to this. And like, you want to bring that to your state, like we want to lead from the federal government. And so
Bill, before you jump in real quick, I just want to sort of respond to it. So I totally get, and I've heard a million times, especially in government, hey, talk to me about blockchain, don't talk to me about crypto, right? Hey, talk to me about technology and use cases. And I'm sure you say that to each other and say that to other people. But my question specifically is, you know, if I send Mark or Senya or Dr. Ed Ingram, if I send them $100 and I used a Ledger Nano, right, which generates a new address every time I send it, or if I send it in a privacy coin, right, Monero Zcash, then that happens completely outside of the purview of the traditional banking system and the regulatory reporting requirements that gives government access to it, right? And so my question is that even something that folks in Congress are aware of? Is it something that they're concerned about? Meaning, you know, if we have the option of take Bitcoin as an example, right? I realize that it doesn't scale, but it's been relatively stable the last, I don't know, period of time. When Bitcoin and other decentralized cryptocurrencies get large enough to the point that they are relatively stable, right? And people have a choice of essentially using, and I don't know whether it's Bitcoin or something like Bitcoin, but a decentralized, efficient cryptocurrency, as opposed to, say, a central bank digital currency or a corporate coin like Facebook, right? Then a lot of people might just say, I'd rather use a coin that's not monitored because I'm more interested in privacy. And that potentially could have a pretty big impact in government. And so I'm wondering, is that conversation even happening in Congress?
I think I go back to, it depends who you ask. I think on like the large scale, no. I think you still have members that are conflating just like the things that they read in the news. But I mean, the questions are getting better. I mean, I wish that we had, so we have Landon from Emmer's office that his boss sits on financial services, and he's been our eyes and ears like with that, where the dialogue is going there. I mean, again, we do have members on the caucus that are on financial services and are beginning to ask the questions that we need to be asking. But I think the large part, it just, you have people that are like, this is too complicated. I don't want to like get in the middle of it. I mean, we sent a letter, I don't know, Bill, time is weird, like a month and a half ago to IRS on proof of stake. And like, I sent that around to people, even on like the caucus and like folks outside of the caucus. And it was like, what in the heck is this? And it's like, oh, this is like a thing that is here. And it is like very interesting and exciting. And so, I mean, I think it depends who you ask. I think we're getting better. And we definitely do have, you know, movers and shakers that are on the caucus that are able to help move the dialogue along. But I think for the large part, it just is, we're not asking those kind of questions like enough.
Bill, thoughts?
Yeah. And I guess I'd label your question as like a second or third order type question that you, like the letter Tiffany just mentioned, I think 11 members signed on. So maybe 11 members could talk through some of these implications down this rabbit hole. I see this as much of a PR campaign as much as anything, that the questions are getting better. But even when you're engaging with a policy member, ask them directly, do you blockchain only or crypto only? Because some people do get very turned off about crypto. They don't want to talk about crypto. They don't, you know, they've had a bad experience with somebody very passionate about Bitcoin, like, you know, oh, quantitative easing in the Federal Reserve. Like, yes, that's a very real thing. But if a staffer is never engaged, they don't need a 20-minute version of that. So I think just asking top level questions to begin with, and you can kind of see where they're starting at. I think you do have, that said, you do have staffers that want to get right into the Bitcoin and, oh, 21 million and, oh, you know, the halving and all that. So I don't mean that in a flippant way, but just pragmatically, I think you have, depending on the issue, you have probably 4 to 10 members that would be comfortable with the level of question that you just asked. I think so that's where point number one. Point number two is also realizing where on the political spectrum the people you're talking to come from. You know, like my boss is probably more on the middle dim spectrum. Tiffany's boss is definitely further right. So just knowing who your audience are, if they've said anything in the weeds, get right in there. They love that stuff. It's a break from the politics and
yeah.
But if you start that conversation, you lose your audience pretty quickly. So just, what do you care about? Do you know what Bitcoin is? Do you, I call it the getting beyond Bitcoin moment, where everyone's going to want to ask you about Bitcoin and illicit financing. That's where most members start. So have a couple anecdotes, like you're saying, oh, Square just put $50 million in, first bank charter in Wyoming. Like, come armed with those bits and just like sprinkle those fun facts, and then pivot the conversation to something else. Because I think there are a lot of monetary policy implications. But if this, we're literally on the first part of this conversation with most members. Yeah. And if we push it in the wrong direction, people are going to see the boogeyman in all this. You already do have some of those members that they want to ban crypto. You're already seeing nation states banning it wholly. And I think we're at a tipping point where we can control the dialogue, where if we, you know, if you have a member that's asking questions, wants to be educated, and and you call them stupid for not knowing enough, like, you've missed a moment.
Yeah.
And I think just where that comes from is that tension between the ethos of Bitcoin originally as like a more libertarian financial crisis thing that spun out, I think that really does speak to a lot of people, especially probably skews more right, or you bring in the China narrative. Like there are a couple touch points that you can kind of magnify, on each side, where the right tends to focus on China and libertarianism, the Fed printing money. I think you can hone in on those components, where the left probably is a little more interested in the use cases where government intervention, like you don't have to
financial inclusion, things like that.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we're at this tension point where the Fed is working on something. I think they said their Fed Now project is going to come out in 2023. And right now we're at this tension where crypto does have this libertarian ethos, but there does need to be some level of government involvement. And hopefully that dovetailing happens in a productive way. But if the groups continue not to engage constructively, it's not hard to forecast how it could go wrong.
Yeah. So, and I will add one more. So just very quickly, once you get a member that is stuck on their talking points, it is very difficult to put them back. Like once they go on the record with like, I don't like this, or like, I'm very, I don't know about this. It's very difficult to get them to want to walk back. They handle, tons of different issue areas, and they're just going to spend their time focusing on everything else, and they're going to stick to that talking point.
And I'll give you the one nugget for any member that wants to talk about illicit financing. Just point out that the subpoenas from the Russian election hack the 14 original subpoenas, you don't have to make it political, but they were tracked because of Bitcoin transactions. Ultimately, Bitcoin is a better ledger. It's unalterable. If you know where to look, you're going to find it. You can't erase that. So that's a great example I use a lot when people want to go into the illicit financing. It's like, that's where the original subpoenas came from. Yeah, it may be hard to pair a person or an entity with a Bitcoin address, but once you know where to look, you'll find it. And so I think like that's an example of a pivot where they're going to throw out some of those testing items, and you can kind of pivot away and help get them past some of their initial hesitations.
Excellent. All right. Well, so listen, I want to open it up in just a few moments for questions. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to ask Mark Montoya to tell us a little bit about the dashboard that your working group is rolling out. And then once he's done, a couple folks have had some comments or wanted to say some stuff. So I'm going to let Sari ask his question, and then Alex. And then if anybody else would like to ask a question, then just go ahead and raise your hand. I'll put your name on the list. I'll lower your hand so you'll know that you're on the list. And then I'll just kind of run through it. And then, guys, good luck. I have no idea where these questions are going to come from, but we've got some really brilliant people on the call. So hopefully you'll even learn something from the questions. But let's start with you, Mark. Tell us a little bit about the dashboard, what you're gonna do with it, and then I'll open it up to general questions. And Joven, I got you on the list.
Sure. So the dashboard Gerard's mentioning, GBA is going to have a dashboard that has mainly a lot of the information you already see out there, right? There's a couple phases. There's 3 phases, and the first phase is going to have everything that you kind of see out there with nomics, crypto, coin market cap, where you have the number of top cryptos to fiats, top cryptos to international fiats. And just have some, price Bitcoin going up and down, just have various graphs. So that's an easy lift. And then the second phase, we're going to have some additional metrics, right? Some trend analysis with the information of the price of crypto to fiat, various metrics out there. And then the third phase, we're doing not just this one paper, the cryptocurrency impact on government entities. That's one of the first research papers we're doing. And there's other groups working on research papers. The next part of the dashboard will have some graphs from the actual research and have it on the dashboard. So you can see the data, and then you can actually have a link to the research paper, and you can actually drill down into it a little bit more. And we're hoping that it'll eventually get to the point where it's an interactive dashboard where you actually can download the information that we have. So we not just have public information, but we have some customized information from our members that are part of these data sets. And we're hoping to have something out within the next couple weeks.
And then we've got a relationship with Findexable. Do you want to just talk a little bit about that Findexable relationship?
Oh yeah, so Findexable is they're a UK based company. They're based out of London, and Findexable is they have an index of all fintech companies from around the world. And if you're a fintech company, you can add yourself to their index. They'll do their due diligence and add you to the chart. So essentially, you can look at the global map. You can say you're doing work, or you want to partner up with somebody in. You can say, we'll say, in London, right? And you can see what they do, what type of solutions they have, and then you can add yourself to it too. And you can either partner up and see if they have blockchain solutions, they're doing cryptocurrency developments, what type of fintech solutions they have. And this is from all around the world. And what's great too is they kind of do like the IMF or the World Bank book that the World Bank puts out. They have by regions, they have what is important in that region, what's being developed most in that region, and they have various analysis and metrics, which is very interesting. And they're one of our partners. So hopefully we can use some of their data going forward in our dashboard.
Yeah, so when that dashboard is out there, it's going to be a phenomenal tool for anybody in this space if they want to really know what's going on with the world. We also have a relationship with the Union of Arab Banks, and so they should be with us in May. But GBA has a blockchain certification series that we're going to be teaching and training the bankers in North Africa and the Middle East on blockchain, cryptocurrency, and financial aspects. Thank you, Mark. So sorry, I am unmuting you. So you, well, actually, you're going to have to unmute yourself.
Yes. Hi, everybody. You hear me very well here?
Perfectly.
Perfect. Sorry, I have some noise outside, but yeah, thank you, Gerard. Thank you, Bill, Stephanie, Mark, everybody in this conversation. It was a really good session. I'm not really in the fintech, as you know, Gerard. We are more in blockchain for business, and we are working here with the GBA in Jordan. By the way, hi, I'm from Jordan, Middle East. So it's a little bit far from the United States and what's going on with the Congress and so on. But it's good to know how things is planning, because I think that United States is in controlling of the world. It's in my opinion. Like anything happens in the U.S. will be reflected, especially on the allies like us in Jordan. So first, I have two things. Gerard knows very well what's going on here. We are doing very well in this chapter, and we are building up a lot of projects with the government itself. And I have just two questions to Mr. Mark Wesley about the GBB. I need to know more about it. If you could, as I have a meeting with the director of one of the ministries next Sunday, I need to know more exactly about what GBB could add if we connect it to our government here. So just like a question, what benefits we're gonna gain if we let's say connected with identity management, or if we connected with the food tracking with the FDA program? Is it something already applicable? Is the United States government already have added this to its source, or it's still in building? And my second question is about it's not a question, it's a comment about what Bill and Tiffany says, especially about the cryptocurrency and fiat currency and the debate what's going on here now. It's something, in my opinion, it's all about the regulation, the regulation entities. Wherever is a cryptocurrency available, it's need a regulation. And anyone in the decentralized communities, just like a Bitcoin, for example, realize that if you put a regulation in a crypto or a decentralized system, that means you put it somehow in a centralization authority to have this regulation. This is the main issue that, from my, let's say, general noticing that I've seen. Just so take example what just you have said, Mark, about disconnecting between the stock market and whatever the economy having effects from COVID. It's just something like there is a disconnection. There is something going on as a politics. We all know it. The thing is, this centralization control of the economy need to be disappeared to make a successful fintech, a successful DeFi, whatever you called it. This is my opinion about it. So that's all, and come back to you, Jared.
Okay, yeah, let's have Mark Wasser answer the GBBP question, and then I'll throw over to Tiffany and Bill if they have any thoughts or questions about the regulation part.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Mark, you're on mute. There you go.
Sure. So could he repeat the question real quick?
I'll repeat it real quick. He's got a
Sure,
minister.
sure.
You got a minute. He's got a meeting with the minister of I think finance. He said, and he wants to know what's the state of GBBP maturity? Is it deployed? Is it conceptual? And what potentially would be the benefit with the government connecting?
Exactly. What the benefits and anything like if you have the more elaboration about GBB. I already got the note from Gerard, Mr. Gerard, but I need to know more elaboration so I can just put the things up.
Sure, absolutely.
And Mark, let me just say this one thing real quick. So sorry, as you know, we have a monthly global leadership call first Saturday of every month. I know that your meeting will be before that, but we are covering this and will be covering this at all the global leadership calls where we have the chapters and the working with leaders from all over the world, so that they can have a much more in-depth discussion. For the purpose of this thing, we got to keep we got to keep the answer down to like a minute or two. But you guys can definitely connect offline.
So the easiest way to reach me, and anyone should feel free to do so in this conference, it's mark.wasser@gmail.com. And my name is spelled up on the screen, only one S. The GBBP is currently, I would say, partially functional. We have the GBBP hub, it's Besu. It's been running for quite some time now. There are gateways to the public Ethereum mainnet and several of the test nets. There's also a currently functional gateway to Hive. We've got the cross blockchain token up and functioning so that we can shuffle a token from any one of those 5 blockchains to any other blockchain. We are in the process of recruiting people to provide services. The infrastructure for the services is mostly built. They're basically about a third of it is the token itself. Another third is mostly the coordination that's involved when you have multiple machines. The gateways themselves are actually multiple machines that do the same thing. Initially, we thought about the gateways being blockchains themselves, but that added a lot of complexity that we discovered was unnecessary. We just use the blockchains themselves as traffic cops.
And
so,
Mark, let me just throw one other thing in there real quick. A lot of places around the world are looking at government interoperability, right? So we're in dialogues right now with folks that are building intergovernment blockchain solutions in Serbia, the European Commission, the Texas Blockchain Council, the Boston Blockchain Association, right? Because here's what we don't want to see happen. We don't want to see all of these different entities building these stovepipe solutions. If we can build identity management solutions that essentially can transfer across different blockchain solutions and essentially build an open framework that essentially is an alternative to other sort of centralized frameworks, that creates an open business environment, then that's the kind of thing that we're trying to choose. And Mark, for those of you who don't know, Mark is the Chief Technical Officer for the GBA and is a mastermind behind this. So if anybody wants to talk about the GBB, he's shaking his head, he's extremely humble, but he's also an AI genius. So, we have folks in our midst like Scott Stornetta and Mark Wasser, and incredible. But by all means, reach out to Mark Wasser if you're interested potentially in hosting a node, right? And Mark is working on the deployment packages right now, so you can deploy a node on a Raspberry Pi or any hardware. Our goal is to have 200 nodes globally so that there's no overall control over the network. It's a free and open system that people can use. And Mark, I got to go on to the next question, but I want to thank you for literally all of the incredible work you've done on that project. Alex, you wanted to say something, and I'm going to have to, yeah.
Can I say something real quick? I'm sorry.
Sure.
Bill, Tiffany, and everybody on the phone, thank you. I have to drop off on another call at 2:30. I really appreciate it. This conversation was great. It's awesome. Thank you all. I think give you guys a round of applause.
Yeah, Mark. We'll all take a bow, Your Honor. But hey, I'll call you later about the BRI thing. Okay.
Okay, sounds good. We'll see you guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Bill and Tiffany, did you want to say anything about regulation before I move on to the next question?
I forgot what the conversation was.
Well, it was more of a comment. It was, you know, the more you sort of centralize control, the more you sort of push things away. Sorry, is that pretty much what you? I think that's pretty much the.
And I just add that's why we focus on the budget items as well. That that it's part of a conversation that yes, they are some of the experts. You don't want Congress passing overly burdensome laws, but if the regulators aren't moving fast enough, Congress tends to get involved. So hopefully it's just a healthy dynamic. And then you add the international wrinkle and it gets more complex, but I think we're all on the same team here.
Gotcha. All right, Alex, did you want to make a comment about what's going on in California? And then after Alex, then Jovan. Alex, are you still with us? All right. Well, I don't see. Jovan, do you want to go ahead and make your comment?
No, yes, I would just like to introduce myself. So my name is Jovan Marjanovic, and I assist Gerard with organizational development issues, which for us means membership, sponsorship, and the things that make the organization work. So if you enjoyed this discussion today, I just want to remind you gently that we are a membership-supported organization and we depend on you being members. For public sector employees, the membership is free. For others, it is not expensive. And if your company, if you think that your company can benefit from what we can bring to the party, please consider also joining as an organizational member. There are few organizations that do similar things that we do, but we think that we are quite unique in the way we do it. And in one thing, we are really unique. Our global network, our global outreach and the way to connect Washington with whatever is happening around the world is definitely unique. So. Right. Welcome to the GBA if you're not already a member.
Thank you, Jovan. So I've got a question for Bill and Tiffany.
Yeah. And actually, can I make a plug for you all as well? That you do great work, Gerard. You really are a coalition builder. There are a lot of new trade associations in the space, and you're a credit to the ecosystem and very collaborative because certain policymakers, they're the ones that get the headlines, but a lot of this is done making connections like this and done at the staff level. So it's a lot of work and we appreciate what you all do. And I just have to say you are a great resource of information. And I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but I'm a GBA member myself, great resource guide. I'm not allowed to necessarily share that for ethics reasons with other staffers, but like the materials, but you're great. Some of the other, you're just a credit, especially compared to some of the other organizations sometimes. And I just will preface it saying that we're all on the same team. Sorry if I'm coming off a bit paternalistic, but this is just like after 3 years of dealing in the ecosystem, and it's just friendly advice because I think we all are the same thing. And this is just what I've distilled because the more Tiffany and I don't have to do the 101 stuff, we get to do the cool policy development. And I think that's where we all want to go. And Gerard, you are, and your organization is a credit on the educational front. So the more people take advantage of the GBA and the resources you provide, the fewer 101 coffees Tiffany and I have to have.
I appreciate that, Bill. I'm going to give Schnell an opportunity to ask her question in just a moment. But I do want to respond to that in saying that that we have a huge amount of free resources on the GBA site under the resources tab. And if you're interested in training, if you go to the certification page, if you'd like to be a trainer, you'll see that there's a training handbook which identifies what we believe are the skill sets that people should know in blockchain. So the way we put this together, we basically had the education working group put it together. We then reviewed it with our 200 leaders, which are working group leaders and chapter leaders. We then made it available to the entire GBA community. We asked for feedback, and then we put it out for global public comment. And so that document, it's called the Blockchain Consulting Series Course Handbook. It lays out what we believe are the critical skills necessary for people to be leaders in the blockchain space. And so if anybody's interested in being a trainer and delivering that training, by all means, please reach out to us. If anybody's interested in receiving that training, then just please feel free to go to our events page. Our goal is to get 100,000 people through that training so that Bill and Tiffany don't have to go through the one-on-one conversations. But we do believe that that's something that's important to sort of standardize the knowledge base. But thank you for that, Bill. Chanel, but by all means, please feel free to ask your question or make your comment.
Hello.
And then after her, Dr. Ann Ingram.
Okay. Chanel Glover. I have, I'm new to blockchain, but not public sector. I've worked in public sector as a consultant and also as a former federal employee in the areas of financial management, grants, and just compliance over procurement. So I'm trying to do my own use case studies around different things that I see where blockchain may be helpful. And I just wanted to make a comment and say that if anyone is working, you know, on similar projects, I'm out in California now, but I'm open because I'm still learning blockchain. I'm open to working on any projects to support grants, contracts, financial management, and accounting in the public sector, and how we can use blockchain for transparency and also to support audit initiatives and administration of those different procurement tools. Thank you.
Chanel, Chanel, why don't you put your contact information in the chat so that if anybody would like to engage with you, they can reach out to you.
Okay, will do. Thank you.
And Chanel, if nobody else does, you reach out to me because you know, if nobody else will draft you, we'll definitely draft you.
All right, thank you. And thank you for doing this. This is very beneficial to industry and, you know, government as well.
Thank you. Well, we're glad that you're here, and you know, when people can walk away and say that they learned something or they met somebody, you know, that's a huge win for us. So that's great. I would like to introduce the amazing, the incredible Dr. Ann Ingram, right? Dr. I'm just going to refer you to as Ann. Ann is on our healthcare working group. She's also the leader of our organizational member steering committee. She's got a healthcare company and is absolutely a leader in the area of ethics and integrity. I look up to her. I actually consider her a mentor in that area. But you have to read the sign above the mirror behind her because it says diva. So, and by all means, feel free to make your comment or ask your question.
Hi, thank you, Gerard. You're making me blush, actually. In the chat window, there's a very important question that was asked, I think, by Ryan Wold. I hope I don't mispronounce it.
Yeah. Ryan's with his GSA.
Okay. He said, is blockchain valuable without coins? If so, why or why not? And so I just wanted to kind of add my thoughts to that question. I absolutely think that blockchain is valuable without coins. And in my particular area of expertise in healthcare, where there are many different use cases that are now being proved and solutions being created for when it comes to, for example, revenue cycle management, claims management, provider credentialing, supply chain like in the pharma area, research, R&D, and also wherever you need secure data transaction and exchange, right? There's wherever you need transparency, with data sovereignty and provenance. And healthcare data is highly sensitive and regulated by, laws like the HIPAA laws. And so absolutely, blockchain with its core functionality supports that work and hopefully solving an issue that we currently have now of a gap in interoperability between healthcare systems technically, so that there can be an exchange and care coordination for patient care. And so that's my advocacy and my evangelism is around that, to make sure that providers, healthcare systems, the patients can use blockchain technology to bridge that gap to ensure that we elevate the quality of care and the data exchange that is needed.
Excellent. Thank you, and that's a very good point. I also want to recognize somebody else who's on the call, and I'm going to, I tend to throw curveballs at people. Michelle, if you're in a place.
Gerard, can I interrupt you and just speak to the point that was just made?
Sure. Before you do, real quick, Michelle, if you're available, if you can be, I'm going to ask you a question just about things at the state level. But go ahead.
Yeah, and I'll just thank you for your efforts, Doctor. One of the areas I try to highlight the most in the way blockchain can make a difference is healthcare. I think everyone has a story of, unfortunately, healthcare records were not transferred properly. You hear more and more about somebody was visiting, a family member and was almost killed. That happened to somebody my boss was pretty close to. And blockchain really is a solution. I use the example that right now healthcare providers hold all your data and you don't get to choose where it goes. I use the statistic right now, it takes on average 6 faxes, not emails. It takes 6 faxes to transfer hospital records from one hospital to another. Then you go across state lines, it gets even worse because this data is incredibly siloed. And blockchain envisions a model where the user has their healthcare records on their phone or whatever, where the paradigm shifts, where you go to the doctor and you get to choose what you share, and the records are complete and unfalsifiable. So I do think, unfortunately, that solution might take longer than it should to fix. I think of it in terms of a 10-year solution. But that's a perfect example of an issue everyone can identify with, and taking an incredibly personal story that everyone can relate to and connecting the technology to its solutions. I use healthcare and digital identity are probably my 2 gold standards for where we're going in the next 10 years. Whether it's opioid tracking to get across state lines, there's so many use cases. Yep. So I hope you continue your great work, Doctor. But that's a great way to personalize this technology, especially for someone that's never heard of the tech. Everyone cares about healthcare. Everyone knows the system's flawed. 1/3 of healthcare costs are spent on administrative cost. So not only is it a business solution that if you solve this, that's $1 billion idea. You're going to change lives, and you actually free up federal government funding, on the order of $1 trillion a year, if you optimize that. So you get to be the person that solves a problem and frees up government funding for another solution.
Absolutely.
So I just wanted to make that comment.
Thank you so much.
And I will say, yeah.
I do want to add before going on and before transitioning here is that one of the things that we're starting to work on, thanks to Gerard and Mark and others, is to develop what we're calling a healthcare delivery blockchain platform, GBA standards, right? And you heard about the GBBP, so this is the other arm of it, really focusing on creating that platform for that healthcare interoperability and to hopefully pull in government entities to help manage healthcare issues, especially around mental health, which I think is our next wave of a pandemic that's coming based on what we're experiencing now. So we're kicking that project off starting in November, and just pray for us that we have some really great impact once we launch.
Yep. And I think you have a real chance right now. And I think insurance companies are going to want to get involved in maybe not the most productive way. So I think this really is a moment where we can get past some of the red tape and hopefully get to this solution.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And I did want to add, Doctor, I'm probably going to try to connect with you. So my boss, he's done many floor speeches on this where he'll spend 45 minutes with a bunch of poster boards talking about healthcare prices and where we're going and all of this stuff and the role that technology can play. So yeah, I will say, so my boss is on Ways and Means, which is one of the committees that has healthcare jurisdiction. He is absolutely pounding that drum with committee on making sure that we're educating the members on there as well about where we're going and what the technology can do in that space.
Absolutely. I welcome the partnership and love to support him in any way that I can.
Tiffany,
Awesome.
this is your first engagement with GBA, isn't it?
I think I met you guys probably last year. Yeah,
but
I don't remember.
you've just experienced the real value, the real gem behind this. It's all about connect, communicate, and collaborate. And whenever I see what just happened, it just kind of warms my heart. That's what this community is all about. I do want to turn our attention to Michelle. Michelle, you are rather than me tell them who you are, why don't you tell them about who you are, where you work. And these guys were talking about kind of where legislators are at the national level. Maybe you could share a little bit with where their heads are at the state level. Do they know anything about it? Are they interested in learning? Whatever you want to share from that perspective.
Well, that'll be quick. I'm Michelle Bonke. I work for the House Representatives in Pennsylvania in the Democratic Leaders Policy Shop. And I've been in policy for 15 years or so with the House. And I just became enamored with blockchain technology, and I want to, gather all the information I can so that Pennsylvania, who tends to be last in innovation, so that we can, be somewhere near the middle at least, if not, in the forefront of using this technology. So I'm just here to learn. I'm sure that Tiffany and Bill are going to know me personally, and we're going to have Thanksgiving dinner together soon. So.
And Michelle, we talked about coming up there sometime or doing virtual, some kind of training for the legislators. And one of the conversations that we had that we're thinking about is basically doing a blockchain for each committee, right? So taking the whole world of blockchain and just saying, hey, if you're in agriculture, right? Here's blockchain in agriculture. And so we're looking at creating a set of courses specifically for policymakers. It's domain specific to a particular congressional committee. And so
I can't wait. The new session is going to start, and so after everything falls out in November, we'll see where we are, and hopefully we can forge ahead with that.
Yeah, that'll be great. And hopefully I'm looking forward to doing it at some point without masks, but until the meantime.
Yeah.
But look, talking about technology, we have Torben, and Torben, you're from around the corner. You want to talk a little bit about what you guys are doing and where you are and what you're up to?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Jared. So good to meet everyone on here. Torben Anderson. I'm one of the founders. We're a small startup in the blockchain space doing consulting and development. But our heart is really partnering at enterprise level and government levels and to solve really big problems. And so we're quite focused on supply chain. We've seen what happened during COVID, like being able to secure, especially healthcare supply chains, which was mentioned earlier. We're pretty passionate about compliance and actually freeing up businesses to do what they're supposed to be doing and automating components of compliance and validation. And we're particularly keen on also creating solutions that allow us to operate in times of crisis. So, for example, securing smart city applications, like where we're seeing cities develop AI and other components, and how we can secure an infrastructure within a city. And in particular, we're also hoping to speak next year in the GBA event about, for example, securing the ability to do fast policy decisions in times of crisis, like for Congress or for other government agencies, to be able to make decisions during a crisis and to be able to do that securely, remotely, and be able to do that in a case where people can't meet physically and face to face. So those are some things we're looking at, but healthcare is also, that's why I got quite excited about what everyone was talking around healthcare. I think it's such an important and critical thing for nations. We are based in the UK, Australia, and here, although we're a very small team, but those are the sort of countries that we're focused on. And so, yeah, we're just really excited to be on here today and to learn more about the trends and where people are going. And we are actually interviewing people at the moment just to understand where things are going, so we can kind of line up to that and see how we can serve the marketplace.
Thank you, Torben. So, guys, we're within 9 minutes of when I'm gonna let everybody go. I'll hang for a little bit in case anybody wants to just continue the conversation.
I'll jump in and make one more comment, because we had a state-based comment and then a private side comment that some of the things Tiffany and I are talking about is just how the federal government can help. They have the biggest checkbook. The states are the ones leading innovation in a lot of ways, as is the private sector. So we want it to continue that way, and we're not trying to, say we're the federal government, we're the end all be all. But there is ways we can facilitate assistance that, whether it's pilot programs or grants that are distributed at the state level, or if you're a company that does X, there are ways to design grants to allow companies like that were just mentioned to do things. And I think there will be an opportunity next year on some of these things where, that homework assignment where I think there will be avenues for funding supply chain, for healthcare initiatives, for tech components, because those problems were really crystallized by COVID. I think COVID accelerated the blockchain policy debate by a few years. So that's a way that we can kind of liaise and be helpful, that, it's not the federal government swooping in to solve everything. Like, we want you all to do your thing, but there's ways we can partner, especially in the funding side, and with some legislative clarity that almost provides a federal floor and then allows states and public-private partnerships to really accelerate on top of that.
Well, you just made a whole bunch of new best friends.
Yeah.
All right, but let's do this. My recommendation for folks is put the information in the contact form. Let's go ahead and build out those use cases. Let's try to align those funding sources and opportunities with folks on this, so that we can kind of keep that organized in case, instead of sort of swamping Bill and Tiffany with a whole bunch of emails. But we will do everything we can to facilitate that. So somebody wanted to ask a question. Their name is listed as Justice Chain, so I'm not sure who that is, but whoever Justice Chain is, if you'd like to unmute and ask your question or comment, that'd be great.
Yeah, hi Gerard. Yeah, this is Akbar. I'm from Washington, D.C., Virginia area. So I think we chatted earlier, a great conversation here. Thank you for having me on the call here. I know we are a blockchain company focused on improving public safety. So we are a startup. We started 2 years ago and working on, bringing in blockchain to innovative solutions for justice and public safety. Like, we implemented solutions that alludes to arrest warrants, search warrants, criminal records. So I just want to kind of see if you're hearing anything from a policy perspective from DOJ. I mean, are they participating in any of your discussions? We have demoed a few solutions to Department of Justice, different entities, which was really intriguing for them. But I just want to know from a policy perspective, are you hearing or talking to them just to kind of get a sense of that?
I mean, Bill, I don't know. I haven't. So this is news to me, which is helpful.
Yeah, what was the
know.
well, I missed the first sentence or two. What was the DOJ hook you mentioned?
Oh, no, we demoed, I mean, some of the, the solutions. We were the kind of first to bring in blockchain-based solutions to justice, public safety. I know we've been working in this space for the last 4 or 5 years, pre-blockchain, but we're just kind of bringing in a blockchain focus to some of those problems, like, being able to share real-time information, right? Whatever you see the issues in the healthcare system, right? Being able to share medical records and all that. We face the same issue in the justice side, where criminal records, I mean, everybody is in silos, agencies not really sharing the information. There's so many duplicates information there. So I think that's where we want to see how I think we saw a very good match where blockchain would kind of address those problems, very similar to what the other lady was talking about in the healthcare side. Criminal records, information sharing, criminal information sharing. And we also developed something for arrest warrants where, going all the way from street to the court, involving the police, the attorneys, the prosecutors, all the way to the judge, everybody is in the blockchain, so everybody knows what's going on. We run into issues in the justice space where, there are a lot of lawsuits.
Hey, go ahead, Bill, but I want to wrap it up pretty quick. But Akbar, I do want to follow up with you because you and I talked before, and I'm interested in finding someone to help us with our law enforcement working group. So let's circle back around. Bill, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yes, I just want to mention, this is Tina Smith. I've been waiting for someone to mention law enforcement. I'll upload my email information so the three of us can connect and talk details.
That'll be great. Thank you.
And I think what you're mentioning is a great example of a partnership. And when I say dumb data, that's a perfect example. I can't speak to your issue directly, but I will say this was the first year where preliminary pilots were launched. I know like the one that got in a lot of news was the IRS contracted out ways to look into Zcash and a couple of the other privacy coins. But I know there were some humanitarian aid tracking grants. So that's a great partnership ready to happen where some of these things are needed, the logistics need to get worked out, but there are ways to craft initiatives where your company already does something the government is looking to improve. I think a lot of people would acknowledge those problems and may not even realize a technical solution exists. So that's a good example of, hey, DOJ, look at blockchain solutions to look at X, cross-state criminal records. Like that's a perfect example of things just to shine a light on what you're already doing, ask the DOJ to look at it. And it might be a 2-year process where, in the first year we ask the DOJ to examine it, in year 2 we ask for a funding hook. Because I don't think it's efficient for the DOJ to set up their own initiative. It should be some sort of public-private collaboration, and there are ways to build that out in a 2-year partnership. So that's probably what I advocate for.
Thank you.
And I will add, so my boss, we did a bill, I think it was, I forgot which member we did it with, but it was called the Connect Act, where we talked about like technology solutions. We didn't specifically mention blockchain, so this is super helpful that if there is interest of the DOJ, the bill was going to be, because the issue with data being siloed, that is an enormous problem we know with just law enforcement in general. And it was, kids that are in the foster system, having that communicate with like the stuff of the DOJ and making sure that like we're giving kids the most, the best chance that they can. And it's more complicated, but either way, there is potentially interest there, even from people that maybe like members on that were on the bill that don't normally think about blockchain, but if there's a potential solution there, that is a hook to absolutely get them interested. So
and guys, listen, I need to wrap it up, but I want to share just a couple of things. If you're looking at my screen, I'm sharing my screen, there's a QR code. If you snap that QR code, that'll take you to a Dropbox folder where you can get the presentation that Bill shared earlier. You'll also be able to get the full, either an audio or the full video including the chat box. So if you put information in the chat box, you'd like to come back and watch the whole thing. It will take about probably half an hour or so for that video to get up there. Zoom has got to process it. Once it processes, I'll download it to that thing. Before you leave, if you'd like to put your contact information, any information in the chat, it'll be available to all the participants. This will also be edited in terms of, the stuff at the beginning, just where we're doing small talk, will probably be cut off, and it'll be posted on the GBA YouTube channel. So if you just search YouTube, go to YouTube and search for Government Blockchain Association, you'll see not only this event, but you'll see many of our other events, which include things like legal impacts of decentralized autonomous organizations and distributed autonomous gaming, and just all kinds of really great events, including the events that we did at the US Capitol last year. We also have a podcast. If you have press releases and stuff like that you want to get out, we can get press releases out to about 2,000 media influencers a day. We also have our newsletter network. So if there's information that you guys do want to get out, if you're interested in connecting with folks, please consider joining GBA, join a working group. We're really looking to bring people together across a local, state, national, international divide to solve problems together, and then to take those problems back to their governments. And I wish I could give you the time, but we're out of time right now. I'd like to thank Bill and Tiffany very much, and Mark Montoya, all of you for joining. It's all of you that make this community great, and I'm just so grateful that you guys are willing to spend 2 hours, and I hope you got something out of it. So thank you all very much for participating.
Excuse me, Jared, may I say something?
Sure, Ksenia.
Yeah, so I would like to thank Miss Tiffany and Mr. Rockwood. It was really exciting to listen to you, because I worked for Minister of Finance of Republic of Croatia, so I was a legislator for a long time. So right now I try to connect technology and legislation. So in our report, as Mr. Montoya said, so part of the report, and of course the blockchain is a part of that, and cryptocurrencies is taxation. So one of the points that we are looking at is, as you said, everything in this COVID pandemic is accelerating, especially digitalization, and Croatia is a member state of the European Union, so we see recently the proposal of regulation for the crypto asset markets and a new digital agenda. So from this point, and from, I don't know, a few days ago, OECD has new report about the taxation. So I think that's very important to look at the technology and cryptocurrencies from the way of taxation also, and the impact of economy. So thank you very much for, it was really interesting 2 hours. So thank you much, both of you, and especially Mr. Jared.
Thank you, Ksenia. You were a gem. All right, well, Bill and Tiffany, again, thank you so much. We're so grateful that you spent this time, and we'll see you guys all next time.